New at 6 tonight, a Virginia congressman wants to sack a financial incentive package aimed at luring the Commanders to the Commonwealth. Chief investigative reporter Eric Flack is following every development on the push for that new Commander Stadium. And Flack, the congressman told you he has no interest in giving tax breaks to billionaires like Dan Snyder, right?
Yeah, that's what he said, Charlotte. Congressman Don Beyer told me stadium bond packages like the one working its way through the Virginia legislature right now steal needed tax revenue out of the pockets of everyday taxpayers, all to benefit people who have more than enough money to build these new stadiums on their own.
Dan Snyder just bought a $48 million home just down the river in Alexandria. The team is worth way north of $3 billion. They shouldn't be using scarce federal tax dollars to build a new stadium.
Congressman Don Beyer is a Democrat who represents voters in the heart of Northern Virginia, and he has introduced a bill in the U.S. Congress to eliminate the federal tax-exempt status of stadium bonds, like the ones many state lawmakers in Virginia want to use to lure Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder's new stadium to the Commonwealth. Right now, profits on bonds are not subject to federal income tax, which is part of the appeal to investors. Congressman Beyer's plan would require stadium bond holders to start paying federal income tax on the profits.
So to be clear, this wouldn't necessarily make it financially less lucrative for Dan Snyder. It would make the idea less palatable to Virginia and those who want to support the bonds.
That's exactly right. And in a perfect world, it would shift most of the burden back to the owner of the team to go borrow the money to build his own stadium.
The proposal to convince Snyder to build his state-of-the-art new stadium and football complex at one of 3 potential Northern Virginia sites includes a $1 billion bond package to help Snyder finance the project. Fairfax County State Senator and Majority Leader Dick Saslaw, who wrote one of 2 versions of the stadium bill working its way through the legislature, told me last week the bonds would be repaid using $1 billion of the future tax revenue generated by the new stadium, which is better, Saslaw says, than stadium deals in Las Vegas and Atlanta, both built with the help of hundreds of millions in upfront taxpayer dollars.
We are not funding a nickel. Not a nickel.
Still, under Saslaw's plan, the state would forego $1 billion in future stadium tax revenue that would otherwise go to fund government services.
We're at a time when we're trying to figure out how to afford child tax credits, how to lift up minimum wage, how to make sure teachers are well paid, how to pay for our infrastructure bill. It just seems crazy that we would choose a new stadium over those.
Beyer told me there is also mounting evidence from stadiums built across the country that taxpayers don't always get back what they put into these deals. The Super Bowl was just played in SoFi Stadium in LA, a $5 billion complex paid for entirely with private, not public money. Charlotte.
All right, Fleck, let's talk timeline here. Could this federal legislation get passed quickly enough to stop the Virginia Stadium Bond project from happening at all?
Yeah, the big question, does all this really matter? And it's unclear at this point, but Congressman Beyer did tell me legislation, his bill, is competing for attention with a number of huge federal priorities right now, the ones we hear in the headlines all the time. It would likely require passage sooner rather than later to impact the stadium bill in Virginia, which already has bipartisan support. Charlotte?
A lot of meat on the bone of this story. I know you'll stay on top of it. It's ever changing every single day. All right, thanks so much, Eric.
All right.